everyone, welcome to my channel. As the year draws to a close, I wanted to make a video looking back at one of my favorite things of every year, which is all the book to movie adaptations or book to TV show adaptations that I watched this year by ranking them from worst to best. This year when I was making the list, surprisingly, I had more on it than I thought I would. Last year I feel like was such a good year for book to movie adaptations, and there were so many good ones last year. This year I have to say there weren't as many that were interested for me, and there weren't as many that like I had actually read the books to then see and compare like what it was going to be when it turned into a movie or a TV show. But there are really good ones this year, and there are some not so great ones. So I wanted to go over all the ones I watched, starting at the worst and getting to the best. And as always, feel free to let me know what book to movie adaptations not only that you watched this year, but that you're looking forward to next year, because next year there are quite a few that I'm excited for. So yeah, let's get started with the ranking. Coming in dead last, I hate to say it because it's been on like just complete worst movies of 2024 list, but it has to be Uglies from Netflix. I did not read this book when it first came out, like the series. I was not an Uglies girl. However, I was interested to see the movie because I do really think it's an interesting idea of like a world that just basically like gets rid of any kind of flaw or individuality to make people pretty. I thought the premise, especially in 2024 with Facetune and Photoshop and all that, could have been done really well. That's why it's unfortunate that it did just turn into like a worse Divergent movie. You know what I mean? Like it was just very heavy on the sci-fi and a lot of like old themes that I feel like we've seen done time and time before. And again, that is kind of like when the book came out, like love triangles were big, sci-fi was big, dystopia was big. So it kind of was set up to fail in a way already. But like I said, I do think there's a way that they could have reworked it and really got down to the story to make it interesting for the society we live in today and how everyone is like just so obsessed with like seeing on Instagram and like you have to figure out what's real and what's not and all that. I think that could have been really interesting. Unfortunately, it just didn't do anything. I watched it with my friend who had actually read the series, so it was kind of good to follow along with her, and she was telling me like what was different, what was similar, and she said yeah, that they did change a lot. The emphasis on the love triangle came sooner than it did in the books because it started, she said, in like later books, and I just think overall it wasn't anything memorable or special. I don't think it's the worst YA adaptation out there. I'm sure if this had come out around the time of like Divergent, Maze Runner, like that 2014, 2015 time when every YA book was getting adapted into some kind of medium, that it would have done okay or decent. But at the end of the day, in this time, it just feels like a bad YA movie that I honestly think is not memorable. Is like the worst part about it. The CGI wasn't great, the acting was like fine, whatever, and I know there's good actors in that, it's just they didn't really have anything to do, so it was just a letdown overall. I wasn't attached to the book though, which is good, because I know like it would suck if it's like you've loved this book for so long, it finally gets turned into a movie and then it's not good, because that's definitely happened. But overall, I just think forgettable and not good. It didn't really try and do anything with its story, which is unfortunate because it had a really interesting story. After that, it was kind of a rough year for Netflix, but they kind of deserve it after canceling so many shows I love. I have Bridgerton season 3. This was Penelope and Colin's season, although if you watch the actual episodes, you'd never know because there was so little time with Penelope and Colin like actually building into their relationship, which is wild, not only because they're the main couple, because they're a couple that we've known since the beginning, like since season 1 it's been teased that they're getting together, and for it to just be kind of rushed about, like they have so much to work through of like everything where it had ended on the note of her overhearing him say like he'd never court her and stuff like that, and then betrayal of like finding out she's whistled down and everything. There was just so much to go through and it all just felt so rushed and so bad. Unfortunately, I feel like once they switched showrunners, Bridgerton has just been on a decline, which I feel like is kind of wild to say for a show that only has been out 3 seasons. But when it's been so many years in between seasons and when you have to wait so long for the next season, I think it's fair to say that this was a monumental disappointment, especially for like how great Penelope and Colin should have been. There was just way too much focus on other storylines and other characters, and I get needing to set up Benedict's season for next time, but I think there's a way to do that while still being respectful of like it being Penelope and Colin's season, and overall it just felt way overshadowed. I feel like there were some good moments between them, but I just wanted so much more. Like it just didn't feel like they were a main couple. It felt like they were kind of just popping up every once in a while and then we'd go to something else. I am gonna check out the next season because I do really like Benedict and I like what I've been seeing from like the casting and stuff like that. However, I think Benedict is like the last character that I'm attached to, so if this season isn't good, and it's going to be 2 years probably before we get that season, which is ridiculous, but if that season's not good, I think that's going to be a farewell for me and Bridgerton. After that, Netflix, the hits just keep coming, and I don't mean hits in a good way. I have season 1 of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I so wanted to like this one, and I can't even pinpoint to you what exactly it is that doesn't work for me, because I feel like watching it, when I read the book, the plot twist and everything that came out, I remember just being like flabbergasted, like on a ride, you know, like it was so great. So part of me is like, maybe it's because I knew the plot twists that were coming, they didn't seem as impactful, but then I'm like, no, because that's happened many a times where I've read the book and then watched a movie or a TV show and the reveals still feel astounding. You know, they still feel like you're learning them for the first time, or they feel revolutionary. I think though the thing about this show is it's just boring, unfortunately. The only parts that I really like are Ravi and Pip. Those are like the only things I can actually like stand. The other scenes I just get bored and distracted and my mind wanders. I just feel like reading the book was such a fun like roller coaster of a ride to then just get to this, which just feels fine, I think is the problem. Like, it's just not, none of it is like stellar, none of it's great. And again, I love Pip, I love the actors who plays her, I love Ravi, and I think their relationship's really fun, but like nothing else stands out to me, and it's just, I was bored watching it, honestly. Like, I didn't even end up finishing it because I was just like, I know what happens and it's way more exciting than the books. It did get picked up for a season 2. I don't know if I'm gonna watch that or not, just because I haven't actually read the other 2 books, and based on this, it was just not my cup of tea. It felt like the best way I could describe it is if you watch like British teen mysteries before, like I watched Get Even, and that was good. And I don't know if it was good because I hadn't read the book, but it felt good in the way of it felt like it was leaning into what it was. This felt like someone else trying to make a British TV like mystery, if that makes sense. Like, it just, there was some step removed from it that kept me from getting like really attached to the characters, really attached to the story, or like involved and invested in it. If you're like boring, that's just kind of like one of the worst things you can be as a TV show, because you're not holding my interest. After that, in a win for Netflix, I will say, I have Thelma and the Unicorn. This is based on a children's picture book, which I hadn't read, but I actually like was just, it was one of those days where you're just like scrolling through Netflix to see like what came out, and this looked really cute. I think it was very like straightforward, the message of like, you know, you have to be you and embrace like who you are, and you can't just hide behind like what you think people will like, and like the idea of like you get what you want, but then you realize it's not actually what you want, and you lose the people that you care about along the way. Like, again, I don't think it's anything, it's not reinventing the wheel, right? Like, it's the same story that we've seen, but it's done very, very well. And I think in a way that if we look at a lot of animated movies that are geared towards kids, specifically geared towards kids I'm looking at, I feel like a lot of them are either just like scared to really go there with like a message of like life is tough, or they kind of patronize to the kid and be like, isn't life just like great, and like we can just like sing a song and everything's good. So I like that this one didn't really shy away from that and really like took that message, I feel like, of what I grew up with, I guess, right? Like, I feel like animated, again, specifically the ones that are targeted towards kids I'm thinking of, a lot of these days are just more like, there's not really a message in them, or if it is, it's kind of like not something I think that's like super relatable to kids or anything. So for this to be like, you know, a message about like, you think you know what you want, and you along the way sacrifice like the relationships that you do care about because you think it's all worth it, then to realize it's not, and that the people who love you for who you are the people that really matter and that you should really care about. The animation's really fun. Like, I feel like it's kind of hit or miss sometimes, the animation on Netflix, but I really liked it, especially when she goes like full unicorn, like her rainbow and her glitter and everything like that. I feel like they really played well with the animation style of that. So it was just a really fun, enjoyable movie. Next up, I have Percy Jackson Season 1. Now, I put this on my 2023 book to movie adaptation list because it had started and then this year it finished. I am conflicted about this because on one hand, I do really love it. And I love that we're getting like a full-fledged Percy Jackson adaptation, and it seems like we're gonna get all the books and everything, and that's really great. I love the actors. They are phenomenal. Like, all of them are, to be like young actors, a lot of them like their first like big gig, and just nailing it out of the bat is amazing. I love like the development of Annabeth and Percy's friendship and how it started as like this animosity on his end, and like she was kind of like dumber than on her end, but like more on his end, he's like, she's not my friend, so that's why I'm bringing her. And then going to like them being relying on each other more so than anyone else and trusting each other or anyone else. That was beautiful. I loved how sassy they made Grover. That was hysterical. However, I cannot, and I know I'm being stubborn with this, I cannot get over the fact that they made it so he missed the winter solstice deadline. I feel like it's fine. Maybe it's more realistic. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it makes sense that like he had to talk Zeus out of like, you know, doing this and starting the war and everything, and maybe that's more impactful. But there's just something so quintessentially like childhood about reading a book that's like you have this deadline and they make it and they win. Like I don't know, like when I saw that they changed that, it just felt wrong. And I know I'm being stubborn. I know I sound like the like grumpy old man on my porch being like, he made the deadline in my book, but truly I just couldn't get over that. Like, I was just like, it feels wrong. And again, it's impactful, blah, 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 whatever. But I just like that, like, idea of, like, a Power Rangers episode where you know everything's going to be okay by the end of it, even if it goes bad again the next time. Like, it's just, it took something away from me. And I'm not happy about that. I really like this series though, and I do think like the inclusion of Annabeth hearing that Luke was the traitor and like being there and like having to defend Percy from that was really good. Like that was, oh, when she took off her invisibility cap, I was like, that was so cool. So I'm excited for the next season. I mean, I think I'm attached to the whole series, but I think the first book will always be the most special to me. So any other changes they make, I don't think will hurt me as much as that. And the casting specifically for Tyson and Talia has been so exciting. So I hope that we get more episodes soon because I do think it's really, really great. It's just, yeah, that I could not get over. I don't know why. I'm so stubborn, but I could not get over that he missed the deadline. Next up, I have The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which is actually based on the book The Greatest Christmas Pageant Ever. I just randomly decided to see this one. We were in the theater and saw a trailer for it, and I was like, that looks like just a fun, like hopeful, inspiring movie. And it was really cute. I love Judy Greer, who is like the main mom in this. So the whole story, if you haven't heard of it, is basically, it starts off with this woman played by, who plays Lorelai on Gilmore Girl? I don't know because I didn't watch Gilmore Girl, but that's just what I know her from. She's telling the story of like the Christmas pageant of her childhood. I think it was like it was a special one, maybe like the 50th or something. Basically, her mom was put in charge of it because the lady that was supposed to be like hurt herself and couldn't do it. So she's in charge of this pageant that like is very special to the town, but like has kind of just turned into like nothing special. Like it's just the same thing over and over again. Like the same cute little girl plays Mary. The same thing happens, you know, like it's just, it's fine, but it's nothing special anymore. So she's taking over this, and these troublemaker kids, this family, the Herdmans, who are just like complete, like they bully people, they steal, they're rude, like they decide that they want to be in the play and they're not taking any other answer but okay. So everyone else in town is kind of like, they're gonna ruin the play, like they shouldn't be allowed in it, like they're the Hermans, and basically like shunning them. And the mom's like, no, like the whole point of this play is like to be inclusive and that like everyone is loved, so like to exclude them would be like missing the entire point of it. And her kind of trying to persevere through her own doubts about like, you know, they're gonna ruin the thing, but like it is the right thing to do. And it's just one of those like super inspirational movies. I like that it is like kind of tongue-in-cheek with itself, of like it's not like patronizing again, or like it's like they're so bad but really they're just like blowing raspberries. Like no, they steal, they do bad stuff, but like they have a tough life and they don't shy away from any aspects of that. And it's just a really, really nice story. I think it's like a nice one to watch at Christmas, especially obviously because it's called the Christmas pageant, but I could see it being one that like I turn into like a tradition of watching like every Christmas, because it's just a nice, uplifting, heartwarming story, and I really enjoyed it. Now we're getting into my top four, which my top five really, but my top four are like, I love these ones. So number 4 is Heartstooper Season 3. You know it, you love it. Heartstopper. I don't know if it's been picked up for another season, but like if it has not, I'm gonna be so mad because every season just gets absolutely better and better. Going into it, I knew this was gonna be a bit of a tough one because it was gonna deal with a lot of Charlie's anxiety and his eating disorders and just kind of the idea of like Nick and Charlie struggling as a couple to help navigate Charlie through this. But it is one of the best messages ever, and it already happened in like episode 2, I think, where Charlie's aunt, his mom in the book, but in the TV show, his aunt tells him basically like love can't cure a mental illness. It can't make you better, and it's not like just because everything is going great with you guys that means that you're not gonna have bad days or bad times. And I just think it's just such a uplifting show, even, and I've always said this, even when it deals with hard stuff and hard times, like seeing Charlie struggle with his anxiety and his depression and his eating disorder, it never feels bad. Like it always feels realistic of like, you know, moments like this, you know, people or you yourself have dealt with something like this, and it's always going to be for the better. Like they're gonna get help, they're gonna go to the right people, and it's all gonna work out in the end. And I just think it's so realistic, especially growing up with like so many ideas of like manic pixie girl, of like love saves everything, right? And just to hear someone finally be like, it's not you. And also like Nick is a teenager himself, like he's dealing with stuff, so especially in that case of being like, you're a kid, like you can't take this all on your own. I just feel like it's just such a, it's like my comfort show. It is one of my favorite adaptations ever of any book. Like I just think it so nails how well the characters are, and I really hope that we get more seasons. Coming in number 3 is Rivals. You know it, you love it. I just said that for the last one, didn't I? This show was such a surprise. I had not heard of the book, I had not heard of the show, and then I randomly opened Twitter one day, and again, like that tweet that I talked about, like a siren song drawing me in, there was this beautiful edit of Rupert and Taggy, and because, you know, algorithms are the way they are, they must have seen that I looked at it for more than 0.5 seconds, because then my timeline was just flooded with all these edits and tweets about this wonderful ship on this show, and I was like, you know what, I'll check it out. Little did I know it was going to be one of the best shows I have watched all year. I absolutely loved it. It's not a show that I normally watch. Like I don't really go for like the dramas and like the like upper class like tension of all that. Normally I'm just like supernatural or romance is my game, but it's just such a great show. I love the timeline, 1987, like they really nail that time. It's fun when it's like not just one thing of the show. Like obviously I love Taggy and Rupert, so like their scenes always mean the most to me, but I wasn't bored by anyone else's. Like I feel like they were really good and very interesting. The story itself is interesting, and I definitely want to check out the book to see how much of that is like what they did versus how much of it is what it's based on. It got picked up for a season 2, but it hasn't been written or filmed yet, so it's going to be a while for that. But yeah, I'm going to check out the book, and it was just a really fun surprise. I always like surprising shows where it's like you have the beginning of the year, you know, like the shows you're excited about, right? But then these shows that you honestly had never heard about, like somehow it just feels, I guess what I like about it is it feels more old school. That's how it was back in the day, right? Like word of mouth. It wasn't like you were being like bombarded with like, here's every show coming out, or like you could just look up when like a show you were interested in was coming out. Like it felt more old fashioned of like when I was a kid, of like finding a show or like my friend being like, hey, check out the show. And that's just something like special about that. So then it being a really great show on top of that just makes it feel extra special, and like it really felt like 1987. What can I say? Now, number 2 is My Lady Jane, a show that was unfairly canceled, I will say. I read this book when it first came out, and I really, really loved the book. There is a lot in the book that wasn't in the show, but that's okay. I think they were obviously planning for like other seasons, but Amazon had a different idea. Thank you so much. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. There's no show out there like this, right? And that's why I'm also mad that it's canceled. It's Regency. Is that Regency time? I'm bad at historical, but it's like old historical time. It's royalty, it's romance, it's got supernatural elements with the transforming into animals. Like there's just so much about it that just sounds so fun, and I think this is definitely like, I mean, it's popular now, but I think it's going to develop like a following forever and ever because it's just so different and so unique. The main leads, Jane and Guilford, oh my gosh, the chemistry between them is so amazing, and I feel like this is going to be a launching point for like both their careers. Like I know Emily is already going to be in the People We Meet on Vacation movie adaptation, which is great, but like they're just both so good. And this is another case of like, obviously, like, I love them, they're my favorite scenes, could not get enough of them, but the other characters are really interesting too. Like, even the bad guys, you like love to hate them, so you like to see what they're up to and everything. It's so wild, from the set design to the costuming, the scripts, the acting, like every part of this is just so amazing, and it is so sad. I mean, I'm glad it ended on a somewhat happy note, like it wasn't like that big of a cliffhanger in terms of like the couple being together and stuff, so that at least makes me happy. But I am sad that we're not going to get to see any more of it, because I just think like, yeah, fight choreography, Jane as a character, Guilford, their relationship, like there's just so much about it that is just so great, and I love so very much. And I really like the book, but I feel like I almost like the show more, which is wild to say. I know I rarely ever say that, but I just feel like the casting, you know when you have lightning in a bottle with like casting wise, and Guilford and Jane's actors are that. Like their chemistry is just unparalleled, and they are both so those characters, you know what I mean? Like that's, no one else could have played them, and it's so frustrating. Normally on my like rankings, there's a Netflix show that got unfairly canceled. This time it's Amazon, so congrats Netflix, you survived this one, but I'm sure we'll be back next year. And then coming in at number 1 is The Wild Robot. This is another one, I have a full review on it, so I won't go too, you know, on my soapbox, but when I first saw the trailer, it was like the teaser trailer when I was at the movies for something, I was like, no thank you, pass. And this was coming off of, I think it was Puss in Boots, the new one, which I was like so in love with. And then I'm like, oh, what's the next one? And they're like, oh, it's The Wild Robot. And I was like, the what? Excuse me? Oh no, there was Kung Fu Panda. There was Kung Fu Panda in between that, but we don't talk about Kung Fu Panda 4. So being like, oh yeah, like the next one is gonna be Wild Robot, I was like, not another WALL-E. I'm not a WALL-E girl, okay? Like, I like WALL-E as a concept. If he's in my Dreamlight Valley game, I do like him. He's fun. Don't like the movie, okay? So I was a little, like, on edge from that, I will say. But then I saw another trailer for it where, like, they actually talked and explained the story more. And now I was interested. Now I was intrigued. So I went and I saw that movie in theaters. And my goodness, this is a movie that, again, I could make a 3-hour-long TED Talk on about just all the nuances, the animation, the story. Like I said in my review, I think this is a movie you could watch when you're 7, when you're 17, and get a completely different viewing of it every single time, because it's really about life and specifically parenting, but like it shows both the sides of like being the kid being parented, and then, you know, being the parent, the mother who's like raising your kid, then having to let them go and everything. And I said for like my like age, the part that really struck with me was her realizing that she had to let him go and like be on his own, and how like worried she was about that. Like there's this scene where he goes and hangs out with the other ducks for the first time, and it's like on his own, and she's just like hovering there. She's like ready to catch him any moment. And it's like that idea of like this person that has been all of you for so long. Like you've done everything together. You've raised them, like they've depended fully on you. They want to hang out with you, like then turning into, I mean, a teenager in this, essentially being like, I've got my own stuff going on. Like you have to let them go and make their own mistakes, and you're always there for them, but you can't, it's just not the same. It changes. And just that kind of relationship, and then obviously seeing as he goes out and explores the world, coming back and like all that stuff, like it's so amazing. And I also love the animation's beautiful, like so good. And it is sad that this is like the last in-house DreamWorks one, because I feel like the animation is going to suffer from that, because like this is one, again, like this could not be a live action movie, you know, like it would just not be impactful in the same way. Even the coloring of like the fire and like the moss and everything, like the details that they put in, it just reads as so extraordinary, and like it would just take away from it to make it live action. So I hope they don't make an adaptation of it live action, but I do hope that they make more, because I think it was just such a touching story and just so perfect. I think it's the animated movie of the year. Like I know everyone's into Inside Out too, but like this to me was the one that like really touched me. The idea of like just, I don't know, maybe it's because of like, again, the age and like growing up and realizing that like, yeah, the people that are like, you're always there and you always want to hang out, like suddenly they're doing their own stuff and stuff like that. Maybe that's what got to me. I went in with expectations of it to be good, so for it to then be even greater was just the best. I just loved it so much, and I cannot stop recommending it to people. So yeah, those are the 10 book to movie, I think it's 10 book to movie, book to TV show adaptations that I watched this year. Pretty fun, a pretty mixed bag, like I said. I think the ones that I did like were mostly surprising for me. Like, they are either ones that I hadn't really heard of or weren't really interested in, and then the ones that I did kind of know more about and were interested in were the ones that I didn't enjoy as much. So that's why it's always fun seeing like how things get adapted and like the process of what they get adapted, how involved like a studio is versus like the author in that, because I think you can tell mainly, I would say for the most part, the ones that have the authors more involved are higher up on my list and more enjoyable, because even when they make changes, for the most part, they still stay true to the feel of the book. So yeah, let me know what you thought about my picks down below in the comments, and let me know which ones you enjoyed, which ones you loathed this year, and which ones you're looking forward to next year, because there are quite a few fun ones that are coming out next year. And I think just seeing this and seeing how many, again, like Rivals and Wild Robot, which at the beginning of the year I didn't know anything about or had low expectations for, to be so high up on my list makes me excited for like what's to come and what is out there that I don't even know about yet, and what's coming out that I don't even know about. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!